Hey everybody, Charlie and I are two here, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We last left off. Well, the jury turned on us and we got a unanimous guilty verdict. We're doing our summation examination now to try to find holes in their logic and try to change their minds back to a verdict of not guilty. Last we talked to the modern metropolitan young lady who said she would be willing to entertain a new theory as to how that knife got in that young lady's back. Susato says, let's do our very best not to disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you admitted rational there. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it?
Hold it!
But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point in even having windows, huh? Counsel, you would kindly refrain from childish bickering. Oh, sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility the window was open. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Well, the window was probably open because of the fire in the house and the smoke. The old man over there said the smoke causes him to sneeze. So there we go. We can pit this juror against the old man because that would show that the window would be open. So let's not forget those. Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit.
Hold it!
But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I'll have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Why'd she keep hitting that dude over there? Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Oh, well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes. But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Scaredeb. Never you mind that. The point is we were just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it wasn't anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. What about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mrs. Scaredeb's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Press you.
Hold it!
You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home some readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, you know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. Wonder if Mr. Beat will ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't even go there, Mr. Sato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. We're going to press you.
Hold it!
Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry? What's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about the fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. It had 75 candles on the top, it did. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that that's a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all of my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. Furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled up with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold? But how did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. The grandchildren, bless them, threw water all over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then, because the whole room had filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in a hospital for a while. I won't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's story is playing on my mind for some reason. Yes, we know. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as how he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept an alternative explanation. Yes, I don't necessarily need to find contradictions between their assertions, just a connection might do the trick. Okay. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Alright, so we're going to pit you about the window. Alright, so window, we're going to pit you against the old man. And
Objection.
there we go. These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Do you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open the... you get it now? Oh! Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there was a fire in the Garadeb household. And Mr. Garadeb had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke.
Oh my.
Oh, what are you gonna say? We got multiple levels going here. Pursue you.
Excuse me.
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Man, she is down in that tea. Mrs. Garadeb. Oh, dearie me. What does it mean in this? How do you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? What? I beg your pardon? What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if we did? Oh, all right then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window, which can't have been easy since I continued to give him a justly deserved book battering, even though your house was on fire. Oh, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terribly bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish that the window was open. We simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrideb's formal statement. Now you mention it, yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true. Can we press this too?
Hold it!
The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book is The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrideb told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now you come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it. You're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man. I didn't remember. At times like that, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on, as you well know. I really don't. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it. Okay, look at this. We have like multiple layers that we're going down in this dialogue tree here. Boom, let's talk to him. What do you have to say about it, Mr. Muscular Pose?
Excuse me.
Looking like a thin Bluto. What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was. That memory I'd blocked out. Ah. I was listening to what this granny was saying. Brought it all flooding back. Who are you calling a granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garrideb, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just got back home after work like. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I'd just earned that day and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You haven't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I could hardly get the words out, but I told her straight. I've lost the day's wages, love. Did she throw a knife at you? Is this what we're getting? Is that it's very likely that someone threw a knife in a fit of rage? Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear. Stuck into the wall next to me, it did, about an inch deep. About an inch deep, you say? No words, just terror. I could smell it then, you know. The god-awful stench of the Thames. Or Thames, I guess. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. That's a little sexist, is it not? Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered. Apparently I cannot read tonight, and I am so sorry. Short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people is, well, it's so uncivilized. At least attack with honor, using a bow or the like, or the famous Susato flip. What? Attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later if I dare. A woman in rage will hurl almost anything at you. The kitchen knife really brought that home to me. I'm going to press this, but I'm pretty sure we need to pit this guy up with her. But I do want to get all the dialogue I can out of this man, so we're going to press it. If we press it, is he just going to tell us that story again?
Hold it!
Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right. She was chopping meat with it. Had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, it's all memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw me when we were courting. Since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bathtub. Your wife must be even beefier than you. And things come to a head last week when she threw me right into the Thames. Still, she's not so bad when she's calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with in this country was thought up by some clever lads who'd been tossed into the Thames a few too many times by their wives. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this juror's statement just sounds like a really extreme anecdote. But I think it might turn out to be an extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use to make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Really, you're going to spell it out for me this time, aren't you? Alright, we've already pitted you, so we're going to pit you against you. And
Objection!
these two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain yourself, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think perhaps that this could be one such novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation as to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? We've demonstrated that the fourth book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garrideb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garrideb household to the street below. What's that now? After all, Mrs. Garrideb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that ever since the true origins of this book came to light, perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what? What is it? What was it? It's a knife. I'm really taking a big gamble here. It was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't any other real evidence to back it up. But I'm certain that at the very least, this warrants further investigation. All right, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that found its way from the Garrideb household to the scene of the crime was... Is this the same knife? Because I don't think this is the same knife. Well, it wasn't case file, it wasn't book receipt, wasn't a map, wasn't my armband, wasn't 2 pictures, wasn't the 4th book because we already established that, so it has to be the knife. Present it.
Take that!
Juror number 4, Mrs. Garrideb. What? What now? I must apologize in advance for this, but I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this knife before? Ah. Good Lord, counsel, what on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mr. Garrideb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garrideb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who had been backed up against the window. A window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that. The book was found in the victim's grasp. Are you saying that it flew out of the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh? Even my missus hasn't got an aim like that. They did state, it's coming back. It's coming back to me. Mr. Herlock Sholmes said that Mr. Garrideb's wife had serious horsepower in her arms. This is it. This is where it comes back. This is where the horsepower comes into play. With such horsepower, she could have launched that book and that knife. Yes, I admit there are many details we don't yet understand. But that's the point. That's precisely why. We must not allow this trial to end, not right now. Oh my. Ah! Mrs. Garrideb, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Oh, Ah! Oh, she fell out her chair. My lord. I wish to change my decision. I'm a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madam. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman. I'd have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. All together now, ladies and gents. I'd like to know how they have this like fire technology worked out to where you can like hit a button and like a ball of fire flies into, you know, the scales. We did it. Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. Now then, Lord Van Zykes, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? Whoop. Hallowed chalice, like the 20th one. This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond. But let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourself better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garrideb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road, which means that the distance from the Garrideb's house to the scene is some, yes, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. For 14 meters? Oh, that's a little further than I imagined. What? We don't have to imagine it. We were there. We saw the crime scene. We saw the location of the building. 14 meters. And, as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? Look, we're not saying that the book landed in her clutches. All right, what we're saying here is that the book made it out of the house. This lady either picked it up, or she was in the house when this was happening. She was stabbed because she found her husband with this lady. She grabbed this book and ran away and then passed out. Or, I don't know how the windows open, if they open outwards. She could have thrown it. It hit the outward opening window at an angle and then fell straight down. The lady bent over to pick up the book, and then the knife fell straight down into her back, and she stumbled across the street and then passed out. That's what I'm saying, Van Zyke. But that's not what the protagonist is going to say. We'll see what Ryu says. And did the jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. Arg. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Miss Susato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? She is pissed. Maybe let's pick our battles here? My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea of fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. Ellipses. To that end, juror number 4, Miss Joan Gerdeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive. A cross-examination of a juror? I mean, I agree with that statement. Order, order, order. Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to witness stand.
Objection!
He just chucks it behind him. And unnecessary. But Lord Van Zykes? There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume they would be able to testify accordingly. What say you, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beat, reporting for duty, sir. Exclamation point. Well. Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. Oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. Witness testimony. And we'll hit that up next episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider a like, a comment, and or a subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.